Hi there. In today's survey and terrain segment of the webinar, I'm going to be looking at Civil Designer's Draft Expert functionality. The Draft Expert automates the creation of topographic drawings and DTMs by the use of point name rules. The Draft Expert functions can assist you with the bulk of your CAD line work and can be used in a couple of ways inside Civil Designer. Firstly, if you look at the survey module under tools, you've got the draft expert. So the first method is when you're importing a coordinate file, it'll actually create the lines and insert symbols, draw hatching based on those point names from the survey file. And then secondly, you've also got a point-to-point method. The point-to-point method would probably be needed if your survey wasn't initially done in the right format. So the import coordinate method requires that your coordinate file be in a certain sequence and in a certain format. So with a point-to-point method, you still have to then define the routes and click on your points, but basically everything else is automated. And then the third method would be under your reductions pull-down menu. Under the Tacky reduction, you'll see we have got the draft expert available over here as well. So you'd be able to do the line work or get the program to do the line work for you while reducing your tacky survey. So let's have a look at how the draft expert works. So this draft expert is going to take survey point data like we've got on our screen, and then when you run the function, it's going to draw in the CAD lines. It's going to draw your hatching, insert your symbols, your text and annotation, and it's going to do this according to those point name rules. So where do you set those rules? It's under Tools, the Draft Expert, and the Settings. So the Draft Expert settings. And as a default, we've got some of these rules built in, but you can obviously add your own point name rules, and you can then save these settings and reuse them for future projects as well. So let's just have a look at these settings. So for every point name in that server that you're going to be working with, you've got a couple of options on what action the draft expert has to take. So you can insert a DTM point for any point name. You can add feature lines between points. And then you can define a surface that you want the points and feature lines to be added to. You've got quite a few options here on what sort of CAD item you'd like to generate. I click on the drop down, there's a node drawing any CAD option, and then you've got polylines, either a 3D polyline with the height assigned to every vertex, a 2D polyline, spline, chained lines, just single line text, multi-line text, a radius circle, and then a block insert. Any block or symbol that you would like to use in the draft expert function needs to be loaded into the project using the block manager before running the draft expert function. In the CAD properties, you'll specify what CAD layer you want this generated CAD entity to be positioned on, either existing layer, or you can just type in the layer and the layer will be added to the layer settings. You can then also specify a pen color and your line style settings for the lines that get generated. The sequence setting is for the coordinate file import method, where you possibly have picked up points that run parallel to each other, like for example the two edges of a road, and you have a few options there. You've got sequential, so as the survey has been done, everything's just been done in a linear fashion. The side-to-side method would be your first surveyed point that side of the road, then one on this side, 3, 4. So it's going 2 on this side going across, then 2 on that side coming across, 2 on this side going across as well. So So that's a side-to-side method, and an alternative to that would be the zigzag method, where you just go straight across the road diagonally, and then it comes straight across again for the subsequent points. Okay, so that just is the way the program then reads in how the readings were done, and then it generates the lines based on the method used. Number of parallel lines would be with that measurement mode. You could, for example, have two edges of the road. You could have the left edge, center line, and the right edge. So that would be three parallel lines, for example. The labeling in this case, for example, edge of road, the two options are true or false. The true option would be that you do want to have CAD added, a label added, and you can see the edge was the value there, the text item that we've added. Just which label text style you want to use, and then the label height. The hatching, that would come down. Let's see if we're looking at this building BLD item. We're also adding a polyline, a 2D polyline. And in this case, the measurement or the sequence option here was closed. So that means the polyline gets drawn into a closed shape, and then the program can then also be told to hatch this closed CAD entity, which would be items like this structure just inside the fence line over here. As I've mentioned, you can save these settings and reuse this draft expert setting again for future projects. Just if you are setting up your own settings for particular names, you'll see in this bar over here, if you right click, you've got an option to add additional point names that you can then assign those actions to. If I click on the add, you'll see you would just type in the name, and then you can copy from some settings, existing settings from an existing name. So those are the draft expert settings. So let's go look at the draft expert in action. So how does Civil Designer know where to start these lines and where to end them if you've got all these points that you've imported from the file? So you can see in this example all the road edges, the same with the pathway. There's a different start and end point. So if I open up the actual survey file in Excel, you can see the points, and wherever you want to end a line, you can add a suffix, exclamation mark suffix. And when you want to start a new line, you can use a prefix, exclamation mark prefix. You can always set those in the option settings, your own symbol, preferred symbol that you'd like to use. We've also got some levels for the floor and the manholes as well. Okay, so those can be used interchangeably, the prefix and the suffix, to start or end a line. Okay, and then let's move on to the actual project to import that coordinate file and have the draft expert do the CAD work for us. We're going to be needing a tree symbol, so before we start running the draft expert, I'm just going to go to the CAD module, to the block manager, and I'm going to load that tree symbol or block. So these are just the knowledge base default survey symbols. I'm just loading that tree number 2 symbol that was defined in those settings. You can always load your own blocks or symbols. There you can see it in the block manager, that tree symbol. Then just go back to my server application, and then we can run that tools draft expert, the coordinate file function. So this is the file that we're using that's going to do the AutoCAD for us. So just the name, the Y, X. In this case, there are some elevations for the floor level and the manholes, so we're going to bring that in as well, the Z value. Okay, the default names are shown, but I'm going to have to load the settings because they're not currently populated all those CAD and action settings. So I've pre-done those. Those have been prepared before the time, the settings, and saved to a file. So you can see if I just click on the different names, you can see the different actions that are going to be done. Inserting DTM points, adding feature lines, the path being done with that zigzag sequence mode. And in this case, there are two parallel lines. For the text, maybe I can just mention the values there. We've got some built-in values, so you can type in your default text that you'd like to be added, but you have got some right-click options inside that format string details dialog. So if you right-click, you can extract the point name, the XYZ coordinate, and then if you want to create additional lines, you just use the new line option. In this case, we're going to have 2 lines of text. And there's our survey tree symbol that we're going to be using. For the WC points or the water closet, we've specified the hatching to be done as well. So that's set to true. Okay, and I've just selected to run all those points, so actions for all those points, and you can see all the CAD work has been done pretty neatly. Okay, so those sequences based on those exclamation mark positions where the lines stop and start. You can also see the annotation that you've asked to be added along the lines. And your tree symbol that's come through those levels, the water closets, and then the path based on that zigzag method. So it's straight across and then diagonally across all the way along that path as the readings were inserted into the survey file. I can maybe just switch the triangulation lines on and then triangles on first, and then we can switch the CAD layers off, so only the current layer visible, so that you can see the break lines and DTM points that were added. Just going to switch the CAD layers back on, and then I'm going to move on to the tacky reduction. So it's the reductions tacky function, and we loading a field book, and it's just a standard tacky reduction that we're going to be doing, but we're going to incorporate the draft expert. So it's under reduce draft expert. We just run the normal tacky reduction. It's worked out the coordinates, but it's adding in that draft functionality, draft expert functionality. It doesn't have the correct action file, so I've just loaded that additional file to create the polylines, etc. And then the trig points are being put onto a specific surface. So it's just the normal tacky reduction with the draft expert drafting added to it. I'll just switch off the names and heights, and you can see the CAD lines and text and annotation that has been added. So finally today, I just want to run through the point-to-point method, the tools draft expert point-to-point method. So there is a settings button for those draft expert settings up at the top in the prompt area, and I've preloaded the correct draft expert settings for this particular project. So it's just a matter of tracing along the paths where you want the lines to be drawn. In this case, edge of tar, right click finish at the end of every line. So this is slightly more manual, but it's reading in automatically the line types, the annotation, etc. Just doing the center lines for the roads. And right click finish at the end of every line. Doing the water closet with the automated hatching. Just doing the fence line as well. And then just the floor level, the tree symbols, and then this path that's been set up to be drawn with the spline. So basically just have to track along that path point on either side of that path. Okay, and then you've also got the Name filter checkbox if you want to put the names off, but you can also use the normal name filter for that. And that's it for today. I hope this draft expert is something that you'll find very useful. Thank you for watching and cheers for now.